All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another West Michigan Jazz Society Jazz Talk. Jazz Talks are provided free of charge by the West Michigan Jazz Society, and this is something that we are so glad to be able to provide for our community. Today, we are joined by an incredibly special guest, the great Winard Harper. Now, in case you are wondering, WMJS is currently working on expanding what we do outside of the borders of our great state of Michigan. And so Mr. Harper is kind enough to be with us, and we're hoping to be able to bring him in into our state to play some music when this is all over. If you would like to support Jazz Talks, you can go ahead and donate to help support our mission, and that's at paypal.me/WMishJazz. Don't worry if you forget the link. We'll have that up there a couple of times during the stream. So like I said, tonight's guest is the wonderful Winard Harper. And here is a kind of a quote that introduces him. Winard Harper fully embodies the spirit of the giants of the music that came before us. From the first note, you can rest assured that the music will be swinging on a very high level. He is one who is dedicated to the propagation of jazz at all costs. His bands have served as an institution for young, aspiring, talented players over many, many years, much like Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. That was a quote from the wonderful Kevin Jones, a terrific drummer in his own right. So without further ado, I'd like to please give up your virtual applause for Mr. Winard. Hey, Winard, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Not too bad. Not too bad.
Hey, it's so great to have you on a Jazz Talk tonight, and we're very grateful for you spending some time with us.
It's my pleasure.
So I want to get started and kind of take it from the top, if that's okay. I understand that you have a musical family. Your brother Danny and your brother, I believe, Philip, both played the trumpet. What was it like growing up in a musical family like that?
Inspiring. House was always full of music, and it was a good environment. My brother, my older brother Danny, encouraged and taught Philip and I a lot, and we were able to we played a lot of music early on. This is so funny because this is delayed.
Yeah, it is a little bit delayed. So one thing that at least I know, having siblings growing up together, so you all had your love of music in common. Where did you guys get that? Were there other musicians in your family, or what was it?
Well, my parents had a love for the music. They would get out and see a lot of music. My father did photography in some of the clubs around Baltimore. So we were always around the music in the house. And then when my older brother started having some high school bands, what we call basement bands. My father managed some of the bands. So it was like I said, it was a good environment, inspiring. And we got a chance to experience and learn a lot about the music and the history of the music.
That's a beautiful thing. That is a really beautiful thing. So tell us, kind of after your childhood years, where did things go for you then? Like, were you performing professionally from a young age? And tell us kind of what led to kind of the start of your career.
Well, I guess for people who know me know that I was blessed to be able to play and work at an early age. I've been playing in clubs since I was about 5, 6 years old. Later on, we got introduced to jazz. I think I was about 10 years old. So I've been playing and for a good while and playing professionally for a good while, and always still being a student of the music. But I think by the time I was 10 years old, I had a regular Friday and Saturday night gig. And then later on, with that interest in jazz, I moved out of Georgia back to the Baltimore, D.C. area, which was very good for me, meeting a lot of great musicians, and a lot of musicians from come down from New York. And then at a certain point, we decided to make that move and head on to New York.
All right. That's really terrific. So I'm trying to get rid of this echo here. Is there any way that you... Yeah. Is there any way you could use headphones at all? Do you have any headphones on you?
I'm a dinosaur to all this. I usually have to get somebody to help me. Camila, because I'm talking from my phone. I don't know if I'm not even sure if we have headphones. He's asking if we have some headphones I can use for this. Upstairs on the bed. So we're gonna try to see. Will that help with the delay?
Yeah, I think so.
Because actually now I'm not hearing it.
Oh, that was probably my bad then. Sorry about that.
Yeah, now I don't hear it.
Well, always learning, right?
Yeah, that's
always learning. All right, right on. So let's carry on then. And so you studied with the great Jackie McLean.
Yeah, after being in D.C. For a while and playing, we were also very good friends with Antoine Roney, who's the brother of Wallace Roney. And we used to all play around D.C. together. He had gone to school. He was there first at the University of Hartford. And I think he told Jackie McLean about my brother and myself. And then so Jackie asked us, did we want to come and go to school? And he got us some scholarships, and we went off to school up at University of Hartford. So we had the opportunity of spending time with and studying with Jackie McLean.
That's incredible. Hey, you got some people signing in saying hey to you. I'm going to try to take some comments from the live stream, but
sure.
We got Kevin in the house. Kevin Jones in the house. He says, hey, Winard.
Tell him I said hello back and thanks.
All right. Winard says hello, Kevin. So there you go. All right. So sorry about the technical difficulties with the sound, everybody. Always learning. Speaking of always learning, let's fast forward a little bit. So obviously we're in a pandemic right now. And I'm wondering what you have been doing with regard to this pandemic. How has it affected you?
That's a good question. It has affected everybody. I don't think it's anybody that hasn't touched. But and it's made us also recognize and take note of the fact that there's a lot of things we have taken for granted that we probably shouldn't have. Having the ability to work, no matter where it was or how much it was paying, to have all of that just go away has been devastating for all of us. Because sometimes I would talk to a lot of other musicians, and beyond the fact of not having the finances coming in, but not being able to play on top of that was making things really difficult. But at a certain point, let's say about April, when the weather started breaking here a bit, I was getting antsy. So I said, well, I got to find a way to play. So what we started doing was going outside of my house, right on the sidewalk, and we started playing, let's say 2 or 3 times a week. And then we started live streaming it. So we ended up calling the program Sidewalk Jazz. And I would have all these other musicians come over. We'd set up outside, socially distanced, put on a mask, and we would have a jam session out on the sidewalk. And we did that up until just about up to the summer. And then we went back to a club that I work at here called Moore's Lounge in Jersey City. And then we started playing outside the club. And that's gone up until this past weekend.
Wow, that's incredible. That's just amazing that you can like retain productivity and frankly, I completely agree with you. The financial aspect of it is one thing, but I mean, just the fact of not being able to play with people is just absolutely devastating. And from a music that's built so much on community and on the idea of communal and participatory art, that's a really huge thing. So I applaud you for that. That's incredible. Sidewalk jazz.
Yeah, because you get to see how much you miss it and how much it means to you, and how necessary it is to be aside from the notes and the playing, but just the bringing of people together, people getting a chance to conversate, on the bandstand, to feel each other, to feel those good vibrations and the wonderful spirits that can be involved. And then people coming out to listen, people walking up, or sitting out on their porch, bringing their food and coming out to listen. You understand, we took a lot of those things for granted.
Yeah, we certainly did. And I think, after whenever, this is over, do you think that's going to change our outlook on our music and on music making?
In some regards, I hope it does help some things to change, because one important fact, I think some people started to notice, and I hope that builds how important this art form jazz is to worldly life. I think to get through all of the madness that we've been experiencing, whether it be the pandemic, whether it be the racism, the hatred, the dumbness, I think we're going to need those elements that are in jazz to get through this. And I think that's very important. I think hopefully people will take notice of that we're going to have to, improvise. We're going to have to utilize jazz, thinking about the harmony, how to bring things and people together, respect, the love, the trust. All of those elements, I think, are going to be needed for going forward from here.
Absolutely. And, I just think that it goes to show you jazz is the purest form of democracy that we have, right? Everybody gets a say. Nobody gets left out. Everybody gets to come onto the bandstand and to be a part of it. And I think what we have in this country is like what you were alluding to with the racism and so many other things, is that people are being crowded out of the conversation. In what ways do you think has your music manifested itself in these important issues in our society? Like how do you see your music as speaking to all of these things?
Well, for me, I learned from a lot of the, great masters who I am blessed to say a lot of these guys were my friends, be it Art Blakey, Max Roach, Jimmy Heath, Dr. Billy Taylor, Betty Carter. I learned from a lot of these people that the music we play isn't just music. It is also spiritual, it's healing. And we can also teach and nudge people from the bandstand. So I've always tried to play some music that tells a story, tells our story, or invokes some optimism into how things should be or how things can be if we work at them. So we try to implement all of that in the music, as well as showing on the bandstand that no matter where people come from, what walk of life, what shade of color you are, you can get on that bandstand and everybody can be one and respect, trust, and love one another. And that's one of the biggest things, because you look on most bandstands, especially things that I'm a part of, you see people from, you might see somebody from Asia, somebody from the Middle East, somebody from Harlem, somebody from Israel. You look on the bandstand and we're all there together working as one. And just like you said, which is something I say all the time about jazz being the greatest example of democracy, not only does everybody get a say, but everybody else helps them have that say so.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. And what you mentioned here about how everybody else helps that person have a say, I think we've lost some of that. Yeah. I think we've lost some of that in our society, some of that altruism.
Yeah, but it's in the music.
It is. It's in the music. And I think that the music can kind of be our gateway, to bringing these things back into our society. So I understand that you are a devout Muslim, and I'm wondering how your faith shapes your music and shapes your life.
In all aspects, in the striving, in the trying to be the best human being that you can be, trying to be the best servant that you can be, also the utilizing of the talent that you have, as a blessing, taking that and using it to give back and to serve. So all those things come out. And like I said, we still try to teach from the bandstand. A lot of my material, a lot of the songs have titles that reflect all of this. And then in my study, and come to find out that a lot of the jazz musicians who we've all grown up with or listened to, some kind of way along the way, Islam has touched a lot of their lives. This has been deep into the jazz music for quite some time. Whether you think about, I would have conversations about the religion with Max Roach, with Art Blakey, of course, Jackie McLean, which I kind of come from that tree. Jackie McLean, Billy Higgins, myself, Renee McLean, Yusef Lateef, who I used to spend quite a bit of time with. There were so many musicians. Ahmad Jamal. It's and a lot of guys who have just not even, may not have gone fully, but even studied. So it's been a big part.
I always think that spirituality is such an important part of this music, and to see people like yourselves striving for higher planes of existence, striving for being the best person you can be, and using that inspiration from your faith is just really, to me, it's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. For me too.
So let's talk about your time with Betty Carter, because Betty Carter is a musician that a lot of people know, but not a musician that a lot of people know, if you know what I'm saying. Like they didn't probably know Betty like you did. So I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit about your time with Betty Carter, and maybe if you have some stuff to enlighten us?
Oh man, I think if she was still around today, she would be even more celebrated, because she is that big example of a strong woman and a strong Black woman, and one of those pioneers of entrepreneurship, who I really had a lot of respect for. On the bandstand and off the bandstand. We became, for the period of time I was there, we became good friends. And I used to love asking her questions just about the business, because I kind of saw myself maybe going the route that she went. So I wanted to learn as much about things in the business and self-promoting as I possibly could. So she was a big inspiration to me and a lot of guys. Almost any everybody that's come through her band, she inspired, musically and a lot of things in life. And she was, in her own way, she was very giving. And I think the way she liked to approach the music, that energy, that getting on the bandstand and giving it everything and all that you've got for that moment, I really loved, and I felt like that fit me too as well. So it was those 4 years with her were really, really good time. You know, I learned a lot, as well as her having a business and being able to take, 3 or 4 young guys around the world, and at that time, let's say me, Benny Green, and Tariq Shaw, Mike Bowie, taking us all around, the world, it was just something else, so those things you don't forget.
Absolutely. So spending 4 years with Betty Carter, I mean, you got to have some stories.
Oh, yeah, everybody has stories. I mean, she was human. I mean, she
Yeah.
could be, and she was a taskmaster. But that's the beauty of the music too, because if you're really serious, I think those guys that are really serious about the music are also serious about social issues and serious about knowing and loving spirituality and human beings. So you get to know people, and you just don't. You try not to just pass people off, but you try to have an understanding of what makes a person tick. Why is this person like this? What led them to this? And that comes out in the music. So when we would get information from her, for me especially, I want to understand what she was striving for, what the information was coming from. And I think that would better help me supply what it was that she was asking for. So she could be a taskmaster. She could be hard on you. But I think if she saw that you were sincere and you were going to work on what it was, she also.
That's a beautiful thing. And I think, frankly, we all need people to mentor us like that. Like we all need those people in our lives who maybe will see something in us that we don't even see in ourselves. What a beautiful life. And I think you're absolutely correct. If she were alive today, she would she would be so very celebrated.
Oh, definitely. Especially with us now really, or at least it coming more to the forefront of taking a look at the contribution of women. And I think you would definitely have to say so, because there's a lot of good things she started. There's a lot of opportunities she gave to a lot of the young musicians. And then even after the band, that she started that program that still runs, I think, at the Kennedy Center called Betty Carter Jazz Ahead.
Yes.
So yeah, we really have to.
Absolutely. So in case it was not already painfully obvious, I am a saxophonist, and I just have to ask you, just because of my own heart, and because I know I got some students here watching this, some of my students. So you played with the great Dexter Gordon, and I'm wondering if you could bless us with some accounts of your time with Dexter. He's one of my favorite players, and the very first saxophonist that I ever transcribed.
Yeah. Dexter was something else. I mean, it was incredible to be around. Incredible to watch. But like I said, I feel like I've been very blessed. I had the opportunity of working with a lot of great saxophonists. Frank Foster, Frank West, Jimmy Heath, Jackie McLean. I mean, that's just a few just off the top of my head. But Dexter was. I had the opportunity of meeting Dexter early on in D.C. When he would come through and play Blues Alley, and then one night I got the opportunity to sit in with Dexter. And then from there, he called me when I was in Connecticut with Jackie McLean and asked me about going on the road. And it developed into a friendship, even more so, than I thought or could have imagined. And sometimes that's what, when you do things and you just do the right things, sometimes you don't know who's paying attention and who's watching. And I didn't know that how much of he thought about me or what I was doing. But as it turned out, I ended up finding out later on, the Harper brothers, first time that we took that band to Japan, it was because of Dexter. Dexter had recommended us to one of the promoters there. And even when Dexter got ready to do that movie around midnight, he wanted to get himself in shape. So he wanted to do some rehearsals. So he called me up. He said, Winard, look, I'm trying to, get some things together. I'm just, coming off of being sick. I want to, book a studio. Would you mind bringing the rhythm section from the Harper brothers? And we just play. I'm like, hell yeah. So we went up to, I think, Don Sickler's studio for 2 or 3 days. And we would he would call tunes and we play. And then we may play a tune and then he may start talking to us. So we ask him a question and he tell us some stories for an hour. And then we play another song. Then he may talk for another 30, 40 minutes. But it was really incredible. And I think at that time it had Stephen Scott did some of it, Michael Bowie, myself. I think also Gerald Cannon did some of it. But it was a really, really great time, man, just to sit up there and be in a rehearsal with Dexter Gordon, playing tunes and him telling us stories.
Because what else do you say but yes to that?
Yeah, right.
Like, what else are you going to say? Oh, no, sorry, bro, I'm busy. My bad. Like, what else are you going to say? I love it. So, a tough question that we got a question from one of our viewers here. Oh, wow. What is your favorite gig/club that you've played? Man, people always just ask you to pick just one, and I just never can. But
yeah, which is hard to do because so many of them mean so much to you, and sometimes it's not as much the club or the gig as it is the people. Usually, wherever people are the most receptive, or you get that other feeling, the give and take from the audience. Sometimes those are some of your favorite places to play, and then certain and at a certain time, certain areas, you knew you had to play. At least for me, you felt like you had to play a certain way. Like a lot of times when we would play, we would have gigs in Baltimore. You knew you go down to Baltimore, you play for the Left Bank Jazz Society. You had to swing. You had to be swinging. But and a lot of times playing for in the Black community, that's another thing. You gotta hit the music a certain kind of way because there's a certain thing that we used to. So do I have a favorite place? I can't say that I have a favorite place. Everywhere people will let me be a party to bringing this music and propagating the music, then that's a place that I love to play. The place that we have here in Jersey City now, Moore's Lounge. I mean, and I've over the years I bring in guest artists, and we've had people like Regina Carter and Wycliffe Gordon, Delphio Marcellus, Lou Tabak, and Jeremy Pelt. I mean, my brother Philip Harper. We bring in all of these wonderful guests, and people get a chance to tell their stories. But one thing that everybody says when they come into their club is, "Wow, this seems like one of the places I grew up playing in." And that's a wonderful thing when places like that can still exist, where guys learned how to play, whether it was that organ joint that you played in with whoever, or just that club where it was your first jam sessions. Having places like that where it really feels like a community, you will find that those are some of your favorite places to play.
Well, up here in Grand Rapids, we have a new club, the only jazz club in Grand Rapids. It's called GR Noir. And I just interviewed the owners last week, and we want to have you up here at GR Noir because it's going to be a really intimate environment with an audience who's really, really ready to listen and to vibe with you. So I just want to just give a little shout out to the owners of GR Noir, Nadia and Shaitan. They're really terrific. We really want to have you up there. Guess who's the booking agent? That's Kevin.
Oh, so yeah, well, I can't wait to do it because Kevin knows one of my brothers lives in Grand Rapids, and maybe when we're doing that run, if we all get through this and some of the other clubs get through this, when we're playing, the jazz showcase in Chicago, maybe we can put that on the run and we can make that as well.
Absolutely.
But I love playing in Michigan, and I've got a lot of respect. A lot of guys that have been in my band over the years have come out of Michigan. And there was one year that I did a tour through some of the schools with Dr. Billy Taylor. We played a lot of schools in Michigan. And I was really happy and ecstatic to see a lot of the public schools still had music programs, unlike a lot of our places around here. A lot of schools we went and played with Dr. Taylor, they still had good public school programs for music. And I could see why a lot of the guys coming in from New York, from Michigan, was such the good players that that they are.
Yeah, we have a lot of great public school music programs around here in Michigan, and I'm really fortunate to be able to be an artist in residence with one of them, West Ottawa High School, the jazz band there. Really terrific program. Hey, Mike Hammond, if you're out there, just giving you a shout out on air with Winard. So, Kevin, now we were talking about favorite gigs. Kevin kind of chimed in and he said one of his favorite gigs was the Howling Monk in LA with Winard.
Oh.
I think we played a 2-hour set. We played work song for half an hour and folks were in there screaming. Now, I think you should enlighten us about this gig, Winard, but frankly, if I were in any place and you all were playing work song for half an hour, man, I would have been screaming too. That's the stuff.
Well, first you have to understand the whole situation. A lot of people, thought I was crazy and out of my mind, but sometimes they come to me now and say, wow, man, I'm glad we did that. But sometimes I would take the band on these tours, not knowing how we were going to get paid or if we were going to make any money. I was going all the way out to the West Coast and places on hopes and prayers, and for people who love the music. So we would get out to LA or San Francisco, and I would have these jazz fans, people who love the music and love the band, would just start helping us, helping us with places to stay, helping us with transportation, helping us find gigs. So sometimes we would go out there and I might only have 1 or 2 gigs, but then they would help me find some other gigs that we could tag on to it. And I think at that time, Billy Higgins and them were still around, and Billy Higgins and I were really close. And they would tell me about places that I could look for gigs in LA, him and another guy, dear friend Dennis. And we would come up with these little clubs, and sometimes it wasn't a lot of money, but it was really fun to play. And the reason you could end up playing something for half hours, because the other thing about the band is if other guys came in, young guys that wanted to play, we let them sit in. So they come up on the bandstand. I remember one night we were playing Billy Higgins' place, the World Stage. And man, everybody came and sat in. Even Higgins came and played. And one time, I don't know if Kevin remembers this, he even came up and played and did some singing on Isn't She Lovely? So all those gigs are, are fun. Like I said, it's the people that make the gigs.
That's right. That's right. So speaking of young musicians, you kind of alluded to it here. So Kevin kind of hipped me to that your band is kind of like you work with a lot of young musicians. And by the way, Kevin just said that he does remember that. So you do a lot of gigs with younger musicians. Can you explain what lit that fire for you? What made you want to do that with your groups?
Well, one, giving back, playing something forward, like I used to have to always defend myself with other people, because sometimes I would call people, or my agents would call people and say, look, Winard Harper's looking for bookings. And one of the first questions that they asked, that I got to a point I used to hate to hear, is they would ask, who's in the band? And that became a scary question, because then, okay, you start calling off these young guys that nobody knows. And they're like, well, I don't know who none of those guys are. Can he get Buster Williams, or can he get Ron Carter? Not knowing that you're not going to give me enough money to pay for those guys. And then the thing was, I used to have to tell people, well, for guys like me, Benny Green, Stephen Scott, Michael Bowie, if Betty didn't give us a chance, nobody would know who we are. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give these young guys a chance. I used to have to stand by that, feast or famine, and keep guys in the band and bring who I wanted. So it gives guys the opportunity. It helps also move the music forward, because you're getting that young energy, or that different thought that goes into it. And it at the same time you're getting a chance to even teach and give guys some of the history, because those are some of my wonderful moments. You know, I think about spending time with Dexter, when I think about spending time with Betty Carter, or playing the Blue Note with Harry Sweets Edison, or Clark Terry, and going up in the dressing room and having them tell me about history, or, you know, about the things that they went through or they did, so I could be where I'm at. You have to have that. So if we don't mix it up, give young guys the opportunity, give you know, the more seasoned or experienced guys opportunities, then we end up missing that. And that's the beauty also of this music, is that you can get all of those people on the bandstand. You can be 8 years old, or you can be 80 years old, and you still be on the bandstand communicating.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that with a lot of those, you know, people who were asking you about why you're booking, you know, younger musicians, I think that's a beautiful thing, you paying it forward, because Betty gave you a chance, and Benny Green also, and I think, you know, that's such a beautiful thing. So I just want to say that I just really think that above anything else is what moves the music forward, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's part of the humanity of the music, I think. Well, Nadia and Shaitan are here, and they just said they can't wait to vibe with you at GR Noir. So I don't know if you would consider that an invitation, but I think I would. So.
Oh, sure.
So, and then Kevin said, because of me being in Winard's band, I got gigs with Grady Tate, Frank West, Norman Simmons, Paul West, etc., etc. And then Martine's up in here saying Winard's band always swings to the fullest. Beautiful.
Yeah, Michigan has always had a great environment. You know, that's also, you know, Betty Carter was from Michigan. So whenever we would go through Detroit or Lansing or any of those places, man, it's always been fun. And then of late, a couple of years back, I was having the opportunities of coming to Flint, doing another wonderful thing. It's an organization there called Tapology, and having the opportunity to work with some of the wonderful, wonderful tap dancers. So there's a lot of talent in Michigan that I really admire.
That's amazing. We're proud of that talent too. So you just said something that triggered a memory for me. So I've heard you, well, maybe not you, but I've heard people describe you or tell me that you describe yourself as a tap dancer who plays drums.
Well, yeah, kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, can you explain that, and what would maybe give people that impression?
Well, I guess early on, when I came on the scene, a lot of people, I had a hard time playing and sitting still. You know, the music has to move me. So I kind of, people say, well, you kind of dance as you play. And that's true, because that's what the music is. Even with my students, I tell them there's a relationship that you have to understand, especially being any kind of musician, but especially a drummer. There's, you know, coming out of Africa, there's drums and dance. And it would be hard to play for dancers if you don't understand dance. And a lot of the older guys would tell me, a lot of those guys like, you know, Frank West and Jimmy Heath, you know, back in their early years playing in a lot of those big bands, that's what they did. They played for dancers. Even Dr. Taylor would tell me the music, even jazz music was for dance. So it'd be hard to have a responsibility to do something and you don't understand it, you know, yourself. You know, I think guys who can't dance have a hard time really being great players.
So you've worked a lot with tap dancers then, I'm assuming, because of what you just mentioned.
Yeah, over the years, I love it, and I love seeing anybody that has superb talent. So over the years, at least, you know, they've been over a period of 10 or 15 years or more. Whenever I could, I had the budget, I have an African drummer, I have a tap dancer that I would include in the band. Because I think it's great for the community to see that, for people to see that. Because I think somewhere over the way, people forgot that the jazz music is also danceable. And I wanted to be able to convey that. So I wanted to be able to play and have somebody that could dance to the music and show people that they could still be dancing to this music. This music was danceable. So we've had there's quite a few tap dancers I get a chance to work with, and it's incredible to see.
So you said you usually hire. You said anytime you have the budget for it, a tap dancer and an African drummer. Now I'm assuming that is how you and Kevin got to know each other.
That is exactly it.
So I'm told though that there's kind of a story behind that, and maybe it had to do a little something with congas.
With what?
Congas.
Oh, yeah, because I think what I was going after with the band, which had not been done a lot of times you would see when people were including the percussion, most of the bands were congas. Early on, I had this love, and probably from spending a lot of time with Higgins and being over at Higgins' spot over in LA and seeing, the African drummers, I had this love for the djembe. So my thing was, I wanted that sound with the band. I wanted the sound of the djembe, because a lot of times when you be out in the parks where a lot of those African drummers would be playing with the dancers, man, it was just something about the sound of the djembe that really warmed my heart. So I wanted to take that and include it in the band, and that's what we did. So that was one of the things when Kevin came in the band. I said, well, first thing you got to do, you got to pick up your skills on the djembe.
And the rest, I'm sure they say, is history.
History, right.
So we got a question in here from Michael. And Michael says, what are some unique tips for young musicians going out and exploring their scenes? Do you have any advice?
Well, there was some advice I could have given you before the pandemic. Now, it's hard to say. I'm sure a lot of things have changed. One thing that is noticeable is that we're going to have to create what those next situations are going to be. So that's what I tell guys. We're all probably going to have to look for what that new thing is going to be, what that new spot is going to be. A lot of clubs unfortunately, are not going to make it through this. They're not going to be able to survive. So we're going to have to start looking at either creating some new spots or some spots that will be sustainable. Just figuring that out, because the economics too is bearing down on everybody. Things are becoming so much more expensive really than they should be. The leases for having clubs, if you don't own the property, things have just gotten out of hand. So we're going to have to look at some other things, and some of that is playing at the libraries, or maybe even somebody creating things in their house, but we're going to start looking at some other situations, just creating some spots to play. Really, for me, it's a funny story, but I live here in Jersey City, and at a certain point, I've lived here for a long time, but I very rarely ever played in Jersey City because it wasn't a place for jazz. Maybe every now and then I would get invited to play at the park, or there was a library series here called the Cultural Awareness Series that we would do ever so often. But Jersey City was a hard sell for jazz. But then after 9/11 happened and a couple of other things, some things took a dip. And there's a club that was just down the street and around the corner from my house that I had never really noticed before. But some friends of mine took me by and said, look, this place is interested in doing some jazz, and I went by, and a young man was working, a man by the name of Tracy Simmons. We started talking, and out of that developed what I do now. And it took some time. It took a lot of work, but we were able to develop it to where I was bringing guests in on Sundays. I had a regular jam session on Fridays. So out of that, helped develop all these young musicians. Anybody who was in the area of Jersey started to hear, wait, I can go over here and play with Winard Harper. He has a session. I can do a session on Fridays. Sundays, I can come hear Billy Hart or Lewis Hayes or Regina Carter, and I can come ask questions. So we were able to develop all of that, which probably helped me even when we got to this pandemic, because after that, I had all these musicians living in the area. So I could call guys up and say, hey, I'm going to play outside the house. So that's what I think. One thing is going to happen. We're going to have to create some situations and things, and it may not all be clubs. Like I say, some of it might be schools, it might be libraries, but it needs to happen because, like I said, the world needs this music. This is one of the things I think is going to help us to change things and help us to get through the things that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. So you kind of alluded to this. What do you think is the future of this music, and where do you see it going? Because you kind of, like I said, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what you perceive to be the future of the music.
There again, maybe before the pandemic, I could have answered that better. Like I said, we've all taken a hit from this, so I'm not sure. I'm hoping, like a lot of people are thinking, well, when we can get back to it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure that we'll get back to the way things were. I hope so. We can get back to traveling and touring and all of that. I'm not seeing that anytime soon. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that the music gets more attention. It gets more recognition for the healing power that it has, the ability to bring people together, the ability to help build and create community, that also the elements that are there can be taken and used to build a better society of people. Because that's one thing I always tell people too. I've always noticed that people that tend to be involved in or listen to jazz seem to be better human beings. And that's something, if anything else, I hope that is one of the key things for where the music goes from here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find that too. And Train always said you could play a shoestring if you're sincere.
Right.
And that playing music is, about being a better human, chasing a better side of humanity. So that's beautiful. So let's talk about your current project. Your current band is called the Jelly Posse.
Right.
And first of all, I just want to ask, it came up in the comments, what does that name mean? Can you explain that for our audience?
Sure. As best I can. I think a lot of us are familiar with the term griot. In certain parts of Africa, you either have griot or jelly, and there's another one. So at a certain point, I decided to use or capitalize on that term jelly. And the griot and the jelly, not only in Africa are they musicians, but they are the keepers of the history, the storytellers for their tribes. And that's exactly what I think jazz musicians are. A lot of the guys, like I said, that I would spend time with, whether it be Dr. Billy Taylor, Jimmy Heath, Billy Higgins, Jackie McLean, all these guys were able to also teach me a lot about our history and the history that is so important to this music. So my thing became having a band that could exemplify all of that, in our persona, in the music, that we could teach history or inspire people to go back and check or think about something, to also acknowledge the guys that came before us, the history of the music, our masters. And that's kind of what the Jelly Posse is. We are those storytellers, those people that the catalyst for building community.
So what kinds of stories do you find yourself telling through your music these days with the Jelly Posse, that group of storytellers?
Now I think of late, the best stories for us is trying to convey things that help people to be better human beings. A lot of my things are definitely steeped in spirituality. Also with that, let's say that theme of recognizing and acknowledging the Creator, acknowledging Allah, and giving thanks. that's the bulk of it, and probably some of the most important things, because when we cannot be grateful, that's part of the downfall. Um, so that's a very important thing for me.
So, we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. For any aspiring young musicians, and I think maybe particularly drummers, do you have any advice on what are the important things to know for their careers as musicians playing this music?
It's no different than anybody else. Practicing, studying, trying to play as much as you possibly can. Because with this music, that's something that you come to find, and especially the older you get, this very, very important, and that is how to play with other people. Because sometimes you can learn how to play with yourself or play your instrument, you know, to a high level, but then being able to take that and blend with everybody else, being able to have conversations with everybody else, that's a whole nother technique, entirely that takes developing. So having those opportunities and finding them where you can play with people is as much as possible is very important. So like I said, again, it's all of the same things: practice, studying, but finding those moments where you can build experience and play with other people.
During your time with Dr. Billy Taylor, did you find yourself learning any particular lessons when you were coming up playing with him?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, countless, probably too numerous to mention. There again, like I said, spending time with Dr. Taylor, one of the main things I could speak on that really inspired me was his knowledge of the history. Because here we're talking about a man. I mean, I think I forget how old Dr. Taylor was when he passed, but he was definitely past 90 years old. Mm-hmm. So, and you think we were playing out, working up till maybe he was 91, 92. Mm-hmm. But for him, one thing I could find is that there wasn't a period of the music that I couldn't ask him about that he didn't have some information on. And that was really incredible for me. So, because like for me or Chip Jackson, anybody else to work with him, if there was somebody we had listened to or somebody we had just learned about from records, we could mention the name to Dr. Taylor and he could start telling us something about him. Or I played with such and so then, or we talk about when he played with Coleman Hawkins, or or Billie Holiday, or Earl Father Hines. I mean, you're hearing these incredible stories, and learning some history, which is really really important, especially to a jazz musician, getting steeped in the knowledge of the history and your ancestors. So Dr. Taylor was good about that. Now, for me, he was also, from my experiences with him, he's one of the best human beings that I could tell you. He was always fair. I don't think I've ever seen a time where I saw him like for many of us, highly upset. He was just a good person, and I mean that in its truest sense. He was good people, a good person, very caring, and concerned about people. He wanted to make opportunities for everybody. He wanted to keep things fair. So it wasn't when he got opportunities or gigs or the things in NPR, it wasn't just about getting his friends that he knew. He was reach across the lines, people that didn't know him, or it didn't matter if somebody talked bad about him. He was giving people opportunities.
Wow, that's incredibly beautiful. What an incredible human being, like you said. So here's another, another little piece of information that I've heard about you that I'm interested if you'd confirm for me. I hear that you know the lyrics to many, many, many songs.
Oh, maybe a few. and that just comes from my love of singers. Because I love, and especially great vocalists. I've always had a love for them. So I always kept, like when I would go on the road, and this is before before the formats that we use now. But back in the day, we would all carry our cassette players and our cassette tapes, and and then it became CDs. So we all had stacks of stuff that we would carry. Well, I always made sure I kept lots of the vocalists, with me. So I always had a love for Dinah Washington, Billie Holiday, Little Jimmy Scott, Etta Jones, Abby Lincoln. I loved listening to, vocalists, Shirley Horn. You name it, man. Ernie Andrews. I can tell you, if somebody has a great talent, I enjoy being a part of it or seeing it or listening to it.
That's incredible. So I'd like to open it up one last time here for questions for our incredible guest, Mr. Winard Harper. So if any of you all have questions, he'd be happy to answer them. We'll put them, just go ahead and comment, and we'll get them up on the screen here and get them answered. Before we do that, just a tiny little advertisement. This is a West Michigan Jazz Society Jazz Talk, which is provided free of charge by, you guessed it, the West Michigan Jazz Society. And if you can, we would love to have you donate or join us as a member. You can join as an enthusiast or as a musician. And these Jazz Talks help us support our mission of bringing this great Black American music to you, our audiences, our listeners. And with you, we can, and with your support, we can bring wonderful artists like Winard to Grand Rapids. So, all right, we got a question here. Who's up? This is from Nadia and Shaitan. Who's up and coming that, in your opinion, we should be paying attention to? Some up and coming musicians that we should be paying attention to.
Oh, well, that's a little hard for me to say because we haven't been able to really be out in a while to see what's happening. But there's a lot of right now. I don't think there's any shortage of talent. I've seen in my jam sessions. I'm seeing a lot of very talented young guys. There's a guy that comes over from Brooklyn, 13 years old, plays alto. Is very, it looks like he's going to be a really fine player. So there's a tap dancer out of Harlem comes over named Josh Johnson. Who's got a lot of talent. So there's no shortage of talent. There's a lot of talent. My only fear is, will we have enough places for people to perform and play where they can develop and cultivate their talents? That's going to be, I think, the biggest concern. But right now, I know that before this thing happened, that we were seeing a lot of very talented people come about and on the scene. I was getting a chance to hire a lot of different people, but there was still a concern about the number of places to play, because that was even dwindling
right
before the pandemic. Because Kevin can tell you, sometimes when we would do our tours, it was hard for me finding places to pick up and play before I would get to Chicago. It's hard to say, well, what can we get before we get all the way over here? So I think if we don't do something about that, we're going to see a lot of we're not going to see all the talent get to its fullest potential, or we won't get to see a lot of it that we should be seeing, because we just will not have enough places for people to perform and to get that interaction between a live audience and a live performance, because there's something that you get from that. And funny as it is, I can remember maybe a couple of years before Dr. Taylor passed, he had told me something, and a dear friend of mine always reminds me of this, and it was something I really did not want to hear. But he told me, he said, Winard, you're gonna have to start looking at something other than clubs because that's dying out.
Yeah.
And man, I have to be honest with you, I did not want to hear that because that's how I learned how to playing in clubs. I didn't think, I think just having the opportunity to just play concerts or play festivals, I don't think bands get a chance to really develop or players get a chance to develop. Let's say like those guys like John Coltrane or Jimmy Heath and those guys had Charlie Parker, Max Roach, because they sit in the club playing for so many nights out the week. You're getting a chance to judge and see what audience is like. How do you reach the people? How do you have that conversation? If we remove, the club thing, that gets to be a problem. So we got to find a way to replace all that. Because I remember sitting down, hearing stories. Louis Hayes and I are good friends. And I remember, because in Cannonball Adderley, that was always one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
And I would ask Hayes, questions about the band. He would tell me how they would be on the road and they would get to one place and they playing there for a month. I'm like, a month? Man, can you even imagine playing a club for a whole month? You don't have to go nowhere. You know where you working, boom, every night, whether it be Tuesday through Sunday or what, but you there for a month. And then you leave there, you go to the next place and you there for a month. You could see how those guys could really develop and the band sounds could develop. And anybody chance they go do a record, they're ready, man. So if we can ever get to anywhere near that, would really be helpful for the potential of all of us as musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our closing minutes here, I just want to invite you all to check out Winard at winardharperjazz.com. Check out his work. Check out his music with the Jelly Posse. Check him out when we can all go out to the clubs and hear live jazz again. And Winard, I just want to thank you so much for being on the program tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your incredible words of wisdom. From everybody else at the West Michigan Jazz Society, it's been an incredible honor to have you on today.
Hey, man, I want to thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And people can hit me up at Facebook. You can go to my YouTube channel. There's some stuff on Instagram. If you want to, send me a text or email or something, I'll definitely try to get back to you. But let's all keep this music out there. It's going to help people be better human beings.
Absolutely. Let's all be better human beings together. And thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.